Many people will argue that Matthew, Mark, and Luke had to have been written after 70 AD. One of the reasons why is because all three Gospels depict Jesus predicting the destruction of the temple. Is this really a data point that can be used to date the Gospels, though? Let's first begin by looking at the passages in question. Matthew 24, 1 through 2 says, "As Jesus came out of the temple and was going away, his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. Then he asked them, 'You see all these, do you not? Truly I tell you, not one stone will be left here upon another, all will be thrown down.'" Mark 13, 1 through 2 says, "As he came out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, 'Look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings.' Then Jesus asked him, 'Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down.'" Lastly, we have Luke 21, 5 through 6, which reads, "When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, he said, 'As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down.'" The main reason why these texts are important is because these texts betray knowledge of the events of the Jewish war in 66 through 73 AD, specifically the destruction of the Jerusalem temple in 70 AD. In other words, the person advocating for post-70 AD date will now say that if the Gospels betray knowledge of the Second Temple's destruction, we should date it after 70 AD, since this would be miraculous and therefore not very probable, if not impossible. While there are numerous issues with arguments against miracles, this is not the focus for this video. Instead, let's grant that a miraculous foretelling of the destruction of the temple is not very probable. This does not mean that these passages have to post-date 70 AD, since the anticipation or the destruction of the temple is not an impossible thing. And even the critical scholar Bart Ehrman, who is known for arguing against the resurrection of Jesus, says this.
There's nothing weird about this. In other words, you don't have to be the Son of God to realize what's going to happen pretty soon, because we have other people predicting that the temple is going to be destroyed, and people predict that Jerusalem's going to be destroyed. I mean, there are people today who are predicting that, the United States is going to be destroyed. One of these days, those people are going to be right. They might be in 1,000 years, but I mean, people are going to, you have people predict things, and sometimes they end up being right. And in that period, it probably wasn't that hard to imagine an uprising of Jews that would lead to, it happened before when Jews came up against a foreign power and the temple got destroyed. So it's not that weird to think somebody could imagine it's going to happen, especially because Josephus tells us other people were saying similar things at the time. And so it doesn't make it miraculous. It's just like, so I think, yes, I think he did predict this. And I think that's what got him into trouble with the authorities.
One example of the other people making these predictions is found in Josephus's Jewish War. He writes the following: 4 years before the war, when the city was enjoying profound peace and prosperity, there came to the feast at which it is the custom of all Jews to erect tabernacles to God, one Jesus, son of Ananias, a rude peasant who, standing in the temple, suddenly began to cry out. A voice from the east, a voice from the west, a voice from the four winds, a voice against Jerusalem and the sanctuary, a voice against the bridegroom and the bride, a voice against all the people. Day and night he went about all the alleys with his cry on his lips. Some of the leading citizens, incensed at these ill-omened words, arrested the fellow and severely chastised him. But he, without a word on his own behalf or for the private ear of those who smote him, only continued his cries as before. Thereupon the magistrates, supposing, as was indeed the case, that the man was under some supernatural impulse, brought him before the Roman governor. There, although flayed to the bone with scourges, he neither sued for mercy nor shed a tear, but merely introducing the most mournful of variations into his ejaculation, responded to each stroke with "Woe to Jerusalem." When Albinus, the governor, asked him who and whence he was, and why he uttered these cries, he answered him never a word, but unceasingly reiterated his dirge over the city until Albinus pronounced him a maniac and let him go. During the whole period up to the outbreak of the war, he neither approached nor was seen talking to any of the citizens, but daily, like a prayer that he had conned, repeated this lament, "Woe to Jerusalem." He neither cursed any of those who beat him from day to day, nor blessed those who offered him food. To all men that melancholy presage was his one reply. His cries were loudest at the festivals, so for 7 years and 5 months he continued his wail, his voice never flagging nor his strength exhausted, until in the siege, having seen his presage verified, he found his rest. For while going his round and shouting in piercing tones from the wall, "Woe once more to the city and to the people and to the temple," as he added a last word, "and woe to me also," a stone hurled from the ballista struck and killed him on the spot. So, with those ominous words still upon his lips, he passed away. From this passage, we can see that Jesus ben Ananias anticipated the fall of Jerusalem. So, if Jesus ben Ananias can do this, why do we make a special rule that Jesus of Nazareth couldn't? A common retort at this point would be that Josephus didn't write about this until post 70 AD. But the issue with this is not when Josephus is writing, but rather whether his account of Jesus ben Ananias is sufficiently plausible as to establish a precedent for pre-70 AD prophecies of the temple's destruction. Because the temple had been destroyed before, nothing seems particularly incredible about the possibility that in the decades prior to the Jewish war, someone might have anticipated such a destruction in their own time. Not only this, but the passage places the event under the governor Lucius Albinus, who was procurator of Rome from 62 to 64 AD. So this event had to predate 70 AD. Given these considerations, Matthew 24, 1-2, Mark 13, 1-2, and Luke 21, 5-6 appear to be intelligible if interpreted as pre-70 AD compositions, even without invoking any sort of miraculous prediction. Therefore, these texts are not evidence for post-70 AD dating of the Gospels. Hey, if you're watching this, that means you watched the video all the way through, and I am tremendously thankful for that. If you find value in the work that I'm doing, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. And if you want to help me continue to make better videos and more videos in the future, please consider becoming a patron and joining me in this ministry mission. Until next time.